This is the ultimate katana build guide for Cyberpunk 2077, and in my opinion, it's the strongest build in the entire game. Now let's get into the attributes and perks first. This will be your ideal setup at max level, 20 in reflexes, body and technical ability, 18 in cool and intelligence not needed. Now in the reflexes tree, you basically get everything in the middle and on the right hand side. You don't really need bullet time, it's not very useful, but you can pick it if you want. And you don't really need stunt jock, but it looks cool, so I pick it. Dash, air dash and tailwind are absolutely essential for me. They give an insane amount of mobility and completely change the way the game is played. Also, flash and thunderclap is going to be essential for one of our weapons and also plays into the insane mobility we have. In the body tree, we just take all of the middle perks. This just improves our survivability and makes it harder for the enemy to flatline us. The technical ability tree gets a bit more interesting. The Edge Runner perk is very strong as it buffs our damage by a lot when it procs. Pyromania and Heat Shield are very good perks. As you get 5 stacks of Pyromania, you end up getting 50% mitigation chance. And Heat Shield has good synergy with Shock and Awe, which I'll show later in the Cyberware section. Another very useful perk in the technical tree is Borrowed Time. This allows you to recharge a health item if you neutralize an enemy if you're below 25% health. This is very good for a tight situation and can save you a lot of times. Extended Warranty, Cyborg and Chrome Constitution all give flat buffs, and Renaissance Punk gives you increased Cyberware capacity. Now the cool tree is not strictly needed for this build, but I'll show you in the Cyberware section why we've gone for it. For my variation, I've gone for the throwing weapon perks. Juggler is essential if you want to use a throwing weapon, as if you neutralize a target with a headshot it will return the weapon to you. And finally we have the relic tree. The only thing we want here is vulnerability analytics. But by the time you finish Phantom Liberty, you end up having all the perks anyway. Something often overlooked are the skill progression rewards, and some of them are very useful when they're not bugged. There's improvements to Berserk, Adrenaline Rush and the Edge Runner perk, just to name a few. Moving on to weapons now. The centerpiece of the build is the Byakko Katana, which can be obtained by completing all of Wakako's gigs in Westbrook. After neutralizing an enemy with Byakko, it increases attack speed and bypasses the pause between 3 light attacks, so you can keep swinging until the buff runs out. Byakko's only weakness is that the buff is impossible to proc if there's no one around to flatline, which is why a regular katana with 2 Cyclone mods is a superior option for bosses. The Cyclone mod gives you a very similar buff to Byakko when you hit an enemy with a sprint attack. You can find the Cyclone mod from melee weapon vendors around Night City. This makes a regular katana with 2 Cyclone mods a very good alternative to Byakko. You may even prefer using it instead of Byakko, it's entirely up to you. Agao is my choice for throwing weapons, but you can change the secondary part of the build to whatever you want. Shotguns, submachine guns, blunt weapons, the choice is yours. For healing, I'm using a fully upgraded max stock, and for grenades you can use whatever you want. Now let's talk about Cyberware. If you acquire all of the Cyberware capacity shards, you'll end up with 356 Cyberware capacity. For the operating system, we've gone with the Biodyne Berserk. This is one of the most important parts of the whole build, and one of the key points is your health cannot drop below 25% when it's used. Because of this, you usually don't use it for its damage and attack speed. You use it for when you're low health for invincibility. The Militech Falcon Sandevistan is also a good choice for the operating system, but you'll need to rearrange your Cyberware in order to account for its increased Cyberware cost. In the frontal cortex, we've got Axolotl, Quantum Tuner and Mechatronic Core. Because Biodyne Berserk is so important in this build, we've gone for 2 pieces of Cyberware that help reduce its cooldown. Quantum Tuner and Axolotl are quite expensive in Cyberware capacity, and Quantum Tuner you can't even get until the end of Phantom Liberty. You don't have to use these, but they're very nice to use. As an alternative to these, you can instead distribute your remaining Cyberware capacity into things that help your survivability. Arm Cyberware doesn't really matter for this build, so you can just pick whatever you want. One thing to note is Mantis Blades already benefit from the perks we have picked, but usually they're just an inferior version of the katanas we have. For the Skeleton Cyberware we have Epimorphic Skeleton for max health and armor, Dense Marrow for increased melee damage, and Bionic Joints just for armor. Now for the nervous system, Deep Field Visual Interface is why we have 18 in cool. As you can see, the cool attuned gives us crit damage. We don't care about the main effect, just the cool attuned effect. We have Stabber for increased crit chance with blades and throwable weapons, and Reflex Tuner to give us another chance when our health is low. For the integumentary system, we have Carapace, which makes us significantly tankier. Subdermal Armor just for some armor, and Shock and Awe is very useful. We need it to proc Pyromania and get the 50% mitigation chance from Heat Shield. For legs, the only option in my opinion is reinforced tendons. It has so much synergy with dash and air dash, and it's just too much mobility to give up. For the circulatory system, we have micro rotors for increased melee attack speed, heal on kill to heal whenever you neutralize an enemy, and biomonitor to automatically heal you whenever you drop below half. Also to note, biomonitor removes the animation of healing, which is always good. Hands are not too important for this build, but we have handle wrap for increased crit chance with throwable weapons. And for face, we have Kuroshi Cockatrice Optics for a huge boost in crit chance. And after all that, these are the stats for the build. Something else to note is that you can increase the melee damage percentage by re-rolling Cyberware stats. You can buy cheap Cyberware and keep upgrading it until you see the melee damage option. Once you see that, upgrade the piece of Cyberware you want and the re-roll stats will carry over from the cheap Cyberware. But before you try this re-roll trick, make sure you have the driver update perk and the chipware connoisseur perk from the technical ability tree. Keep in mind you don't have to do this, the build is already strong enough as it is, but you go ahead if you want to be an absolute cyber psycho. Now I want to add a quick section on mobility and give you some quick tips on how to use dash and air dash more effectively. There's an easier dash combo and a harder dash combo. To do the easier one, just jump, air dash, jump again and repeat. The harder combo requires more specific timing. Dash, jump, air dash, jump. The harder dash combo feels more fluid once you're used to it, but both of them give you insane mobility. Also, keep in mind the ground dash costs stamina, but the air dash regenerates stamina instead, so you can always air dash even if you have low stamina. After an air dash, you also retain some momentum when you land. Really useful for parkour through Night City, and especially as enhanced with the aerial acrobat perk. Now, this build doesn't need any mods, but there's an optional one you can download if it interests you, Stealth Finishers. This is not a stealth build, but this mod allows you to use weapon finishers from stealth, a nice little addition to the combat. There are of course loads of other mods available, and you can check them out yourself on Nexus Mods. So in summary, the build revolves around the Byakko Katana and Biodyne Berserk, and because the more we use Berserk the better, Axolotl and Quantum Tuner are very important parts of the build as they greatly help with keeping Berserk off cooldown. However, as I said earlier in the video, they're not absolutely essential and can be replaced with much cheaper Cyberware. You'll just have to be more mindful about when you use Berserk. Here is how quick it is to flatline a max tag squad. Let me know in the comments if this video helped you or if you have any questions. The subscribe button lights up when I say subscribe, and the like button lights up when I say like the video. Hopefully this video helped most of you, and I'll see everyone in my next video.